In 2012, Hersheypark tried to fill a gap in their coaster lineup. They didn't have a hypercoaster, so they introduced Skyrush, an Intamin creation crammed into the hollow section of the park, built to be super compact and fit in a small space. Enthusiasts loved it, but the vast majority of the public did not, because it's super intense and the lap bar hurts like hell. 8 years later, they tried to correct that by introducing yet another hyper. This one smooth and graceful and appealing to the masses. This was part of the brand new Chocolate Town section of the park that introduced a brand new entrance plaza, and it's the first thing that people see when they enter Hersheypark. The ride is unfortunately called Candymonium, and I was able to grab 3 rides on my recent trip to the park. This is my full review of Candymonium. First impressions are important, and the presentation of Candymonium is second to none. Hersheypark knew the importance of dressing up the Chocolate Town area because it's the first and last thing that everyone will see during their stay. So Candymonium was given a great sign and a finale that wrapped around the Kisses Fountain. And that 210-foot lift hill always looks good, as this stands as the tallest coaster in the park. The queue line is entirely indoors, which is really nice to keep people out of the sun, and the whole downstairs queue and upstairs station looks great. Hershey spared no expense with the infrastructure of this ride. But what about the ride itself? I got 3 rides, 2 in the back and 1 in the front. And shout out to the Hersheypark ride ops, who were allowing everyone to choose their row, not just on Candymonium, but on every coaster. Let's go through this element by element and talk about how each one feels in each row. That first drop is typical for a B&M Hyper. It's always going to be better in the back, and it delivers the floater airtime. That being said, I got way more airtime on Diamondback's first drop, and others like Intimidator and Behemoth are even better. And I think this is because Candymonium has a 7-row train instead of an 8-row train, so you aren't getting the same whip over the top in the back row. The next hill is the best part of the ride. This reminds me a lot of Mako's 5-second airtime hill. In the back row, you start rising out of your seat before you even crest the hill, and you don't land until you hit the bottom. B&M is so good at these sustained floater camelbacks, and I'm glad that they put one on Candymonium. In the front, this is the first of many ejector pops when you crest the hill. So the airtime may be a little stronger, but it's not quite as sustained. It rises up and twists into a turnaround, which isn't much in terms of thrills, but it's a unique way to turn the train around, so I like it. You hit another strong airtime hill that has a trim on it, but that trim was not on for any of my 3 rides, so we hit this hill at full force, with all the sustained floater in the back and the sharp quick pop in the front. Another recent trend for B&M Hypers is the speed hill. You find this on Mako also, and these are always great. You fly over these and get some sustained air in the front and the back. Candymonium then dives down and into an upward helix, and even though the natural bank would have been to go to the right, as it's diving back down, it twists to the left. This takes away some of the good airtime compared to how it would be if it was just a straight drop. But it's unique, and it's a change of pace from the beginning of the ride, so I'm not complaining. It rises up into the final hill, this one with a trim, and this time it's actually on. The train does slow down on this final hill, which makes the airtime in the front a lot less strong, but in the back, you still get that drag over the top. This is the grand finale, the swooping turn around the Kisses Fountain, before hitting that one final bump before the brakes. You get a little air in the front and nothing in the back. The ride ends with a dip and a turn to the right before it heads back into the station. Let's talk about the pros and the cons. First, the pros from least important to most important. The queue and the station are incredibly well done. It's entirely indoors, which is great for a hot summer day, with the walls and the ceiling themed to candy. The bulk of the indoor queue is unthemed, but you still get to appreciate being indoors for a while. So the park could have done better there, but it's not much to complain about. The coaster is incredibly smooth. Sometimes even new coasters can be rough, including new B&Ms. We see people say that about Orion, but not Candymonium. It's glossy smooth. Now let's talk about the 2 best elements. First, the speed hill. This comes right after the turnaround, and you go flying out of your seat no matter what row you're in. But the number 1 element for me is the first big camelback. I don't know what it is about this one and the one on Mako, but these are so good, and they're better than the other camelbacks on other hypers like Diamondback and Behemoth. I'll take 5 seconds of pure airtime any day of the week. Now the cons, from least important to most important. Let's start with the name, Candymonium, a coaster themed to candy and a play on words with pandemonium. The name itself is fine for a family coaster, but not the biggest and fastest coaster in the park. It's a nitpick, but I'm just putting it out there. The first drop is good, but it may be my least favorite first drop on a B&M Hyper, and I chalk that up to the shorter train. Next up is the trim brake on the final hill just before the drop around the fountain. It makes the airtime weaker in the back, and it kills just about any forces you would have gotten in the front. And now for the biggest con, the length. This is around the same length as Mako, a little bit shorter, well under the mile mark that a lot of other B&M Hypers hit. I love Mako, and it didn't feel as short as Candymonium. Mako's actually in my top 10, but Candymonium's party seems to end early. Once you hit that trim and get that mild airtime as you wrap around the Kisses fountain, you realize that all the good elements of the ride are over, and it just doesn't feel like much. One or two more solid floater hills would have gone a long way. Maybe if they were able to push the turnaround back a little bit and put another hill going out and another one coming back, it would feel like a much more complete ride. Hersheypark was missing that one elite ride in the park, in my opinion. And I think Candymonium is the best ride in the park, but it's still not a ride that's gonna blow you away. It's a nice B&M Hyper experience with floater airtime, but other than Apollo's Chariot, I think this is the weakest B&M Hyper that I've ridden. It's right there on the level of Behemoth, which I didn't think was that great either. I thought I was gonna like this more than Orion, but I definitely prefer Orion over Candymonium. It does fill a gap in Hersheypark's lineup, and that was even apparent when talking to an employee in the gift shop who said that it was nice to have a new coaster that everyone could enjoy. And when you think about it, it's true that the park's Intamins all try to rip your head off. And even though I think an RMC conversion of one of the wooden coasters is a perfect addition for this park, that would be yet another intense coaster with ejector airtime. Now that they have the B&M Hyper, maybe now it's time for that RMC for their next coaster edition. If you've ridden Candymonium, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you also think that this is one of the weaker B&M Hypers, or do you put it in the upper tier? If you haven't ridden it, let me know what you're looking forward to the most on it, whether it be one of the elements, or just the presentation of it in the front of the park. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like. That's the best way to show your support for the channel. And if you're not subscribed yet, please do so before moving on to the next video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.